Open Education Resources, brought to you by the Council of Environmental Deans and Directors of the National Council for Science and the Environment. My name is the Associate Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences at Southern New Hampshire University, and I am the webinar series moderator. Sorry. I'm going to go through a few guidelines for the webinar. First, please call in using your computer, as the charge will go back to the program. And the moderator should be muted. And as the presentation is going along, please submit your questions through the WebEx chat box. If it addressed everyone, that would be a great way to do it. And what we'll do as the moderator is I will field at the end of the presentation. If there's a lot of questions, I will try to combine a few questions. And if a lot of questions, I likely just get this week's presenter to address the questions as you come in at the end of her presentation. Note that the webinar is being recorded. So some basic terminology that should help you know some of the, in case some acronyms thrown out there or other terminology. So the LMS learning system, of course, the most common perhaps is Blackboard, and there's listed. Fully online. And fully online means 80% or greater of the content is delivered online. And then we're talking online. We could be referring to a program or would be the hybrid or the blended program or course, and it defines 30 to 79% of the content delivered online. And then mocks, possibly open online courses. That we put together this webinar series was the fact that full-time enrollment has increased dramatically. So the last 10 years, there's been an order of magnitude increase in enrollment, And some other statistics there on this chart. Notably, double-digit growth for the past 8 to 10 years. This was together by EduAdventures, who are a market research firm out of Boston. And report by EduAdventures, they tried to predict what's going to happen over the next few years. And you can see that we're reaching some of a plateau, and that double-digit growth, annual growth, is going to decrease possibly to a single-digit annual growth. We have Loble, who is the Associate Dean of Distance Learning at UC Irvine, and she's going to give us a little bit of background on what we're doing. And I'm going to pass Lisa. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that welcome. I'm excited to be here to present to you today. And as described, I will be sharing with you some history of online learning at UC Irvine, as well as some of the challenges that we've been facing and how we've addressed those, and where we expect to go in the future with online learning. If I see a question that's relevant during the presentation, I'll try to answer it, but definitely please, we have plenty of time at the end for questions, so I'm happy to address anything that you don't hear covered or you'd like more information about from the presentation. About me, I'm going to start with the caveat of I am new to UC Irvine. In fact, I'm in my 6th week at UC Irvine in this role. So much of this presentation is a history that has been told to me. However, I have spent quite a bit of my career in distance learning. In particular, I've worked for a number of LMS solutions, Blackboard, worked for a portal solution, which was going on, that were focused on providing online learning and distance learning opportunities for students and faculty and institutions. And I also spent a number of years both at New York University and at Pepperdine running educational technology teams focused on creating environments that online and distance learning can be successfully built within. I have another hat. So in addition to my role at UC Irvine, I have also been teaching for the last 8 years and will continue to do so in an online master's program. We follow the 80% rule. We have a couple of face-to-face moments throughout our duration of the master's program, but the majority of the work is handled online, and its focus is learning technologies. So how to create, manage, and foster robust online learning opportunities in any level of education as well as in nonprofit organizations. As well as how to manage these environments, how to support online learning on your campus hat. So a little bit of background. Online learning came to UC Irvine in 2000, and it's really about how do we capitalize on this movement of online education. This transition from the old school distance education where it was correspondence courses to addressing still a very diverse population of students, but through online technologies. And they began a team, a distance learning center actually at UC Irvine. A couple of people got together and said, let's start to figure out what offerings we can provide for students. Investigated a couple of different areas, and I'll go into more depth in a little bit about these different areas. But
Melissa, can I just interrupt for a second?
Sure.
We're actually not seeing your presentation.
I apologize for that. I thought I shared correctly. Let me try this again. There we go. So you did not miss any slide other than my intro slide. So we'll go back to the slide that I was on. Apologize for that. Process of wanting to identify opportunities to capitalize on online learning, UC Irvine looked at our traditional courses throughout the year, undergraduate and graduate, look for programs, particularly graduate programs, that could possibly capitalize on online learning, and then also looked at extension. And my capacity is the larger purview of our Dean of Extension, although we do support everyone throughout UC Irvine doing online learning. So we have 3 buckets and began building in all 3 buckets. We particularly focused on some of the continuing education or extension courses, but still brought along the traditional on-campus courses, the faculty undergraduate and graduate courses, and also, and I will talk about this in a minute, started pretty quickly with an online master's program in criminal law and society. So we went through a couple of different LMSs just so we have the full landscape here before we get into where we grew from here. We did go through a couple of different learning management systems, focused on academic institution offerings, one from UC Berkeley, one from GBU called Prometheus that was later bought by Blackboard, and even our own homegrown solution here at UCA. But we realized that we really needed a bit more expansive tool set than any of those could offer, and we settled on Moodle as our learning management system of choice in 2006. We're going to use Moodle going forward, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. The Distance Learning Center now has 6 full-time staff members, and then we have our support arm throughout the institution. So we have different people managing pockets of responsibilities in some of the departments, in some of the support areas within the institution, as well as even within our extension center as well. So quite a bit. We began in 2000 with 125 enrollments, 125 students in our very initial offerings, and have grown to over 7,500 enrollments in this last year. We expect to see our growth. You see we're going at quite a rapid clip. We're expecting to see that same kind of growth this year, and in fact have already seen our number of online extension offerings grow up by about 25%, and we're expecting similar growth in our summer session with our traditional undergraduate courses offered during the summer, also online. This is our summer session growth that you're seeing here. Now, summer session is unique, and I wanted to highlight this. We do serve a larger pool of summer session students than many of our fellow UC campuses do, and we definitely serve the majority of the online enrollments throughout the UC campuses. And you can come, students can come from other UCs in our system, take our summer session courses, and get credit and get their grades passed to their institution. We do have a small percentage that are non-UCI students, but we're seeing significant growth within our UCI students. To the 1 out of every 2 undergraduates at some point will take a summer session, and this has become a great test bed for a lot of the online courses. Many will be developed for summer session, and then they'll begin to think about how can we run these online courses, or even perhaps a hybrid version of these courses during the school year. And that we have a Criminology Law and Society online master's program. This started in 2003. It is free online. I think they do come once or twice during their 2-year experience to campus, definitely graduation. And you'll see we've kept the cohorts pretty small. You can see our growth and how it has shifted. We saw a pretty significant spike in our cohort growth just this last year. It almost doubled. And saw that same kind of growth in the number of applications that we're receiving for this program as well. We're definitely looking at this as a way of showing other graduate programs on campus how successful an online master's program can be, and many are looking to model this, but trying to investigate some of the business approaches to that to make sure that it can either fund itself or there are appropriate funding sources for these online programs. So, of the 3 sort of buckets of students that we get the undergraduate students, we get graduate students, and we get extension students. Many of those students are very same in what they're looking for. We see ranges in all of those buckets from 6 to 70 in age. We see them all looking for growth in skills or experience or exposure to knowledge, exposure to high quality intellectual resources and faculty. We see that they're all challenged by increasing number of priorities, as we all are. Some of them are working or participating in very active student activities. Them are trying to balance families and other responsibilities. So treat all 3 of those buckets, although very different in what their goals are in their particular courses, we do very similarly in how we support online education. Now, challenges, though, that we do face is timing, how much time, how long do courses last, and how how much can we encourage interaction within regions, so group activities where students may meet. So we have to balance some of those challenges on having such a wide demographic of students. We are treating all of those students and how much online education with them very, very same. Now, students coming to us, in particular for online education, for all of the same reasons that you're probably hearing about, you've probably already talked about in other sessions in this series, but it's really for our students about convenience and time to a certain degree, but then also about the way that you can interact with your faculty and other students in an online environment. And this we're seeing change. At first, it really was just about time and convenience. We're seeing, and I've seen in my past positions as well, that this idea of personalization. I get my content, I interact what I want, where I want, how I want, and I almost have a more personalized experience than sitting in a 400-person lecture hall. Seeing increased engagement with students and the faculty or the instructors teaching the courses shifting how they engage with students. I'm standing up in front of an audience, whether it's being recorded or lecturing in person, and now it's about what kinds of questions do I encourage students to ask and how to connect with those students through those questions. Where students come in any of those buckets to UCI for our quality the fact that we have quality faculty and quality instructors, and our ability to offer in extension certificates and even degree granting credit, and the caliber of credit that you get in our traditional undergraduate and graduate courses and programs. So of how much really is happening online here. We're seeing campus courses. We see a few campus courses during the traditional school year occurring online. Some faculty will just do them themselves and don't work with us at all, but many of them, they come to us and look to use our technologies, our Moodle or other technologies we offer, or actually look for advice and consulting and how best to design their courses and programs. We see a small handful here. We see a significant group, as I mentioned before, during the summer session of what was once traditionally on ground. Now, also, though, see hybrid. We're seeing challenges, I'm sure, as you all have with space issues on campus, or even challenges with engaging large classes of students in our traditional models. And we're seeing this idea of the flipped classroom or the hybrid environment, where you take out of the classroom the lecture or the content that can be delivered via some other multimedia tool, and instead use in the classroom opportunities for discussions, engagement projects, hands-on activities, and things, and allow you to apply the learning that you're getting from interaction with the content that is online. So online, in a shift, is we're definitely seeing a trend in our extension courses, and you can see here 1/3 of our extension courses are online classes. We're seeing a greater trend in that direction to shift from a traditional on-ground class to an online course. And this is based on demand, not just on our own desire to continue to reach out to a larger pool of students. Our local students are wanting to take courses online. So we're meeting demand, not just trying to expand our range of our population. Our online programs, both the faculty and the students, all through a single point of contact. We find this very valuable because it allows us to route appropriately a student issue without having them have to worry about, do I go over here if it's a technical issue, and do I go there if it's an academic issue. We try to route through a single point of contact, my team, my department, and we funnel them to the appropriate avenue of support they need it if it's outside our purview. And all of those, whether it's an on-ground course, whether it's a summer session course, whether it's whether it's a traditional on-ground offered online, or a summer session online, or an extension course online, they work through us. We have an amount of faculty training to prepare faculty for this, both in the online environment so they can be exposed to what it's like to be a student in an online environment, as well as individual consulting activities with faculty and group type brag lunches and activities that we're introducing so that faculty can learn from one another. Now, the question that you're asking yourself is looking at considering putting courses online or programs online, what's the cost? And there's a fair amount of research out there that's debated, is it more expensive, is it less expensive? I would always encourage you to contain your cost questions into two different categories. One, the development of the course or the program, and then two, the delivery of the course or the program, because those can vary and balance each other out depending on what you're trying to create. But what we found is, regardless of whether it's extension, it's summer sessions, or our traditional during courses that are being put on, or graduate program, the cost is the same to learner, and it's pretty much costing per about the same to deliver. Some places, though, where you get economies of scale, once you've offered it once, you get more and more and more revenue from it as you continue to offer it into perpetuity. So we do see that happening, but for the most part, initially, the first time you run it, it's costing about the same to deliver and to develop, and it's costing about the same to the student, from our experience. Get this question. So I'm interested in how we could start a new course or a program. Where do you even begin? And we at UC Irvine have enfolded this process into our other campus processes, regardless of whether it's a traditional year-round course that's online, a summer session course that's online, or even an extension course. We fold this into a process that complies with a normal course development or program development process. We have initial market analysis and even a business plan. On campus, much of what's being encouraged are self-sustaining programs where they can fund themselves if possible, or if there is grant money or the department sees value in seeding programs or running programs based on sort of the kind of attraction it will get either in the research area or new students, they will do that as well. But regardless of whether it's self-sustained or not, we put market analysis. Do you actually have students that want to come for that program or that course? And is that going to cannibalize other programs or courses that you have in other formats? We have made a business plan for doing that. And then through your normal internal reviews, things like academic senate and grad councils and department teams. So it goes normal approvals to a team where we encourage folks to map the learning outcomes for the program to the outcomes for all of the courses within, identify appropriate teaching learning activities and assessments, and where those need to be online, if not all of it, if you're thinking or 8%, where are the appropriate technology applications for those teaching and learning activities and assessment. We really incentivize development, so depend which bucket, extend to the ground now online or summer session online. We can incentivize either development or delivery or both. It just depends on tradition. And we help plan how to really think about supporting those with you. From on-ground to hybrid is a little bit simpler, and that's more about really thinking about the technology and what components do you want to pull out, what components do you want to retain in the face-to-face environment. That's definitely not gone through the same sort of rigorous evaluation as you're seeing with a new online course or program, but we're still reflecting on that format so that we develop it correctly. Asked, well, what about labs and hands-on stuff and math and things that are really hard to necessarily do online? That's oftentimes a traditional understanding that, oh, it's hard to offer this stuff online. You need to be in person, or there's no way to depict that visually. And a fair amount of time encouraging faculty, and as I would say, more of our offerings are in the sciences and both physical, biological sciences. We get offerings in physics and math. So we see a lot of activity in the sciences, and this is focused on helping those faculty develop videos, both high-end and low-end. Videos do not have to be high-end. We have very cool faculty that have created what I call garage experiments, where they video themselves with either a camera or a video camera doing experiments in the garage. And students respond to that because it makes it video very practical. It's not so polished and flashy like a movie, and they like that. We can build scenarios. We have tools here that help us where you can create certain questions and changes and then consequences depending on how you answer those. We can help you find simulations or even create active elements. We'll build in some of that for some of this labs or hands-on or science activities. Then we get creative in how you use discussions, how you could use synchronous tools online. And, you know, I always encourage, if you're really concerned about how do you transition some of these more traditional face-to-face activities and online, start with hybrid and see how pulling some of that content out goes with the labs and some of the hands-on in person, and then start to pick off where some of those could even be replaced online. Quickly wrap up. I know I wanted to make sure we just taught a half an hour together and then opened it up for lots of questions. Where we can go with our technology, and then I'll address some of the challenges that we see that we're facing. From a technology perspective, we find Moodle pretty stable for us. We're in the process now of transitioning from an old version of Moodle to the most current version of Moodle. But where we found some challenges is hosting. So whereas the application itself is stable, the more students use it, the more courses we offer, the more 24/7 experiences that are being supported, the more we need to make sure it's always up. And so finding the right place to park our servers and to manage our servers has become really important. And I'm that as a trend generally in online education. We mean that it's not just one platform. So it's not, say, I use Moodle or I use Blackboard, I use this MS, that it's about a collection of tools. And you weave that collection of tools together so that it's seamless for an instructor and a student to experience those, but they have an arsenal of ways to interact and to engage with one another and not just a single technology. The other thing, and I'm going to talk about this in just too, is we're pretty much finding that the technology is almost a commodity. It's old school. We're not so much worried about the technology. We're now really worried about ensuring that the instruction is of the highest quality possible and find data that allows us to measure that both through quantitative data as well as qualitative analysis. How can we take that information and then continuously improve? I know we're all faced with that with our accrediting responsibilities, but just in our assurance that what we're offering to students is the highest quality, we find the best ways to do that. I can set with a whole host of our faculty since I've started at UC Irvine that have taught online, and my first question has always been, all right, compare your on-ground course. Do you students learn more, learn less, or learn the same? And all the faculty have come back to me and said they learn the same. And quite frankly, there are some areas where they're getting better than my on-ground students, and then other areas where I see they have more challenges. But we can balance those out, and overall, their grades are very similar. Their skill set when they leave are very similar, and so they're convinced that online learning is as good as a traditional on-ground class and could probably help students graduate quicker, get answers that they wouldn't normally get, identify new minors, manage their multiple responsibilities, and all of those other things that I talked about why students come to UCI. Now, we've seen some broad challenges. I talked a little bit about quality control there and making sure that the bit goes up, the volume that goes up, and the higher number of students we serve, the more diligent we have to be, and the more proactive we have to be about the quality of all of that. Finding and ensuring that their environments are engaging, that they have the appropriate amount of content and interaction, and that the instructors are present in appropriate ways for those courses. Improvement, how do we collect data? What data do we collect? How do we continue to get feedback without further burdening our faculty and our developers? How do we monitor in such a way that we can actually get data that we can act upon quickly? I like to call it just-in-time teaching. How do you implement ways to see what's going wrong before it goes completely wrong so you can fix it? Or do you even get data to continue to make better and better and better, which is what technology affords us? How do we take advantage of that? The last continue to have is around identity management. I think this is a broader discussion in the field. And this is around not only how am I ensuring that I'm getting into the right technologies to interact with my course content and instructors and students, but how do I ensure that it's me? How do I adhere to my agreement with my institution? All of the work that I produce and is of my work, not of others. And so those are bigger challenges, and there are tools and technologies coming out to address them. But I think a lot of that is also around institutional policy and ensuring that it is very clear about how do you handle academic honesty and what does that look like in an online environment. We are in the process of putting together an online committee, an online education committee that will be of senior members throughout the institution that talk about issues, big issues that are coming up in online learning, so that we're all addressing them regardless of where in the institution we are in a common way, and creating policies and procedures to make sure that we're not slowing things down, but that we're seeing things fairly and that there isn't concern about the quality or the integrity going into these courses. Where are we going next with the Distance Learning Center? We want to grow big. We want to continue to grow our enrollments. I was in a meeting just before this webinar talking with our summer session folks, and they have more online courses, more students take more online courses, and more sections of our existing online courses, right? To keep growing and make sure we have the capacity to support that growth. We would like to become a leader in how online learning is served, both for our community as well as communities around the world. And I will say we're a very active participant in the Open Courseware Initiative. I know that's also part of your track. You'll be talking about that, I think, in the next webinar. We have been a big participant since 2001 and feel that not only should online learning be about serving our for opportunities that are traditional and an extension, but that we should also continue to be serving free opportunities as best we can. Involved in Coursera, a MOOC, as was defined earlier, and like I said, we've been very involved in Open Courseware. So wide, we want to continue to serve all of UCI. We've got, we're doing well, but there's a lot of untapped places. And we want to be able to be flexible in our courses. We want to try to repurpose courses so that they can have different formats, different venues, and different foci. That way, we're getting the most, I would say, better development buck, and we're giving faculty an opportunity to repurpose all of the development that they're doing in effective ways so they can once again be more engaged and more present in the courses and not so focused on constantly developing content or online environments. All I had planned to share, I'm sure there are questions. I would be happy to answer any questions or talk in more detail about anything I've mentioned here.
Well, Melissa, if anyone has any questions, again, please use the chat box and address to everyone. And Melissa, if you could, you can see the chat box, so if you could just address them as they come up, that'd be great.
Sure, and I'll stop sharing my presentation. Yes. Location of our online students. Great question. So it depends on which of those three buckets we're talking about. The summer session, we'll start there. Our summer session online students tend to be, they tend to be, the majority of them are UCI, Irvine students, but for the summer or wherever they go for the summer. So they are students that could be all over the U.S. and sometimes even all over the world. We do a small portion of other UC students in California, so we have a number of those as well. Now, our traditional online, our traditional year courses going online are our traditional students. So they're usually campus-based students. Now, our master's programs, though, our criminology, law, and society program draws students from all over the country. Don't we have anyone internationally in that program? But I know we get them from all over the country. Now, our extended students are a little bit of a different story. We get them from all over. And we offer programs in things like English as a second language and other areas that do attract folks from other countries. And so you'll see a wide variety of where our students are located. And we've noticed is as we've grown our online offerings in our extension area, we actually were very tied to our 40-mile radius of our campus. We're in that every year continue to expand out and out and out. So that's no longer the case. We really are pervasive around the country, although our marketing tends to be focused in a region, and so we get the majority of our students in our region. Great. What type of training do we provide our on-ground faculty who want to transition to online or even a hybrid course? It's a great question. And we offer it in a couple of different formats. That we offer is you actually come to the Distance Learning Center as an individual faculty and sit down with us and talk through with you how we're going to develop your course, or like to develop your course. So we analyze how to make the transition. What do you now? What do you recommend? All of our summer session faculty that teach online, and we actually, our summer session programs put that. So the instructor isn't having to invest any money, just their time, or the department doesn't have to invest any money. It's really just time to come in and sit with us and help them plan that out. So in that, we can then identify, how would you like to be trained? Would you like to be trained? Do you want to do an online course, which we do require for all of our extension faculty to participate in as an online course? Or would you like to watch videos and use our archive resources? So we help figure out what's best for that instructor and train and coach them accordingly. Outside of that, we offer colloquia all year round. We offer trainings where you can go and interact online with other faculty. We are, and then we offer courses too, face-to-face courses. Yes, face-to-face courses where appropriate as well. Question: are our faculty resistant to online education? They, and I've heard stories of this. We are seeing a shift. The big concern our faculty have is time for development. You can hear that. Faculty will say, it takes me more time up front to build a course initially. But then I offer it, I get incremental amounts of that time back. So I met with a faculty member who teaches a physics course, and so this coming summer will be her third summer she's taught it online. It's an undergraduate physics course. She will say that the summer was a little bit rough because it took time to develop the course, and she had to work the kinks out with her teaching assistants. But this summer she ran it, she's like smooth sailing, and she started to question even how she was going to use her teaching assistants because a lot of the administration went away. And she's really excited about this third time around because she said that she feels as though she can be more engaged with the students and not have to worry about all this other administrative stuff she usually does. So we're hearing more stories that are shared with other faculty, which gets them interested and curious about shifting to online. Some in general that are a little hesitant about online, once again, is a time issue, not a quality concern issue. They're worried about, could that detract from other research activities or things like that, and how do we pace it? So what we try to do as the Distance Learning Center is try to offload as much of the development work as we can so that we're encouraging as many faculty to go out there and develop online courses as best they can. It's a great question. How do you anticipate competing with other high-quality courses from other institutions? That's a great question, and we get concerned about competition. And we have had discussions, quite frankly, not the other high-quality institutions, but also other new offerings like MOOCs and other things, although they're not for credit at this point. Learning opportunities there that perhaps people would benefit from. So we talk about that quite a bit. One is that we showcase quality, of course, and that folks understand when they're going to UCI and students are choosing to take a UCI course instead of a course somewhere else that they could still get credit for at UCI, that they're getting access to great faculty and great quality, but a great technological environment. And that's what, and I include support in that. And so what my big focus is personally coming into this role is to really make sure that we have the most robust, active, engaging technical environment and fully supported in that environment so that you're getting the best service possible in addition to really high quality instructors and faculty. And if we ensure that, we're less concerned about competing. That's always a question. You're absolutely right about that. I think that's for anyone out there offering online courses. Online labs by other organizations. So there are lab packages out there, and we just talked about this morning looking for some online lab packages to with an anatomy class. We haven't in the past offered online lab packages from other institutions, but we are just starting to get into that. In fact, I'm going to be evaluating some of those once again for a human anatomy class to see if we can incorporate work. We don't actually currently offer additional face-to-face class lab with our human anatomy course. We don't have the facilities, but we would like to do that in an online fashion, so we're evaluating that now. Also working with the School of Medicine to explore ways to put their first and second year of med school online, including some of those lab activities, but we're at the very, very beginning of those conversations as well. So not yet, but we're looking to do it. And Blackboard, yes. Does that experience shape your approach to online education at a mainstream educational institution? That's a good question. So when I was at Blackboard, I had the opportunity to work with, I did consulting work with universities around the world, and my focus was sort of the strategic approach to designing online courses and online programs. So I was less technique, not so much about what tools and what technologies you use, it's more how do you teach effectively using those technologies. Today, probably my overall leans were as guided by that as by my work at Blackboard as much as my own teaching and my own education in the teaching field. But I do think the idea of having technology manage the administrative stuff, you can be more engaged with your students, instructor, and spend the time on the stuff you really like, and not the grading and the managing rosters and the who, what, where, and when of all of the logistics of your course. Has been shaped by my work at Blackboard, and I think that's where technology can be incredibly valuable. That administrative work, and then once again finding ways to connect students that might not otherwise be able to connect one another, through online synchronous and asynchronous activities. So part of, I would say, more shaped by 8 years of success and lots of failures in teaching my online students too. Time when multiple institutions would band together to offer 4 course offerings in a major, where the institution might offer its 3 or 4 courses but not the entire major. I would love to see that. I think philosophically that could happen. And I think actually the conversation about can we band together and share resources, but then specialties, that part could actually be faster than making the technologies work together. And just from my own experience, I think many of you have probably read about some of the experiences in the state of California, and even just trying to come together as a UC system, offer courses to students so that they can take them at other campuses if they are impacted. That was more of a challenge technically for us than philosophically. So it's hard when you've got multiple registration systems and multiple grading scales and multiple approaches for what can be considered credit and not credit. All that can be really challenging. Multiple authentication systems. How do you get into these? That stuff, who gets to pick the S? Some of the stuff I think is hard to do than we academically believe would be a very sound major together, and here's how we're each going to divvy up our pieces. I think that would be a great way to create really elite programs. Do we faculty for online courses more than other courses? No, we don't. And in fact, our summer session online courses, the majority of them are tenure track or tenured faculty. We do have some lecturer faculty that will teach in our online summer courses, but many. And our master's program, our dean in our master's in criminology, law, and society actually teaches in that program herself. And all of those faculty, I believe every single one of those faculty are tenured faculty. We may have one lecture track faculty, not adjunct in any of that. Now it's a little bit different on the extension side because we use instructors, we tend to teach. It's different in how we pay them and manage them. And in that case, yes, we do use adjunct faculty. but not trying to use an army of adjunct faculty, many of which, because of the budget cuts and such, we actually lost a fair amount of our adjunct faculty through all of that process too. So we have that big, huge stream, but it's also not our approach. We want our top quality tenured faculty teaching in our online program. I'm so questions I can actually answer. I was so afraid that my 6 weeks I wouldn't be able to answer everything. How do we support extension students with many additional challenges, and how does it affect the outcome? That's a question. So our extension students, and I think probably you mean by support, how do them, because they're at a distance, they may not have the same technology exposure and even the same learning exposure. A lot of them are, later in life and maybe coming back for a second career. Many of them might be just getting their toes back into learning. So are our undergraduate students that are also wanting to take an interesting extension course for a particular certificate like project management or something. What we do is we try very hard to help every step of the way. So we probably offer more support than you would see normally as an undergraduate or a graduate student. And that we, have a dedicated help team that's available 24/7 to answer questions. We have a student services team that can help them through everything from enrolling and seeing access to their course to questions they have about how their course is running. We do ask all students before they take an online course in extension to complete a brief tutorial so that they're exposed to the technology and the way we use online learning at extension. We also ask all instructors that in the beginning of their course they explain how they will use technology. They understand, oh, I'm going to be using discussions, or going to meet in WebEx for synchronous sessions, or you're going to submit assignments. We ask instructors to be very clear about how they'll use technology in order to make sure that students aren't confused on that level, and try to keep things as full and as possible, so that particularly the student moves through perhaps a certificate program where there's a series of courses. Once they've gone through their first course, it looks similar, and as they continue through, it no longer is about how do I use the technology, but it's about, okay, what am I learning in this course? Are there or administrators at UC Irvine who are very skeptical about online learning in general? Yes. I'd say we have a fairly good group that are skeptical. For culture that it's going to cost more to develop, or that it will cannibalize from our already existing offerings. Those are two big concerns and what they're skeptical of. Like I said before, not as much quality skepticism, although there is still maybe a little bit of that out there. There is the question of how can I teach science, or how can I teach, there's stuff that has to be done face-to-face. How do I translate that? We get that. With undergraduate students especially, we don't offer any undergraduate online programs. And I don't see us moving that way, because we do see value in students having face-to-face interaction at some point during their undergraduate experience. So in a little bit of, in particular disciplines, I need to have my students face-to-face. There's no way I can teach online. Well, I think in some cases I could see that argument, and in others I think there are ways to represent online education and experiences in even a way maybe than you could do in face-to-face. Say cost, and I'll include in cost instructor time or faculty time are some of the biggest concerns. UC California's first charter, while online open up to the U.S. and the world more as an audience and customer base, are there any tensions between serving California and serving the rest of the world? Also a great question. That's a really great question. So in having conversations about this with my dean, who runs summer sessions, all of distance learning as well as extension, I actually just chatted with him a little bit about this. You'll be hearing from him later on in your series. There is tension at the moment because of the volume of versus funding in California. So we are serving our students, and we're trying to find the most economical ways to service our students, given the kinds of funding that we're getting from the state. We can resource outside of our traditional state funds and federal. So there is pressure to really focus on our California students and disregard populations outside, because populations outside can do is bring more money to the institution, which can then allow us to better serve our California population. I think that's a little bit of sort of where we are in our economics in California, as well as some groundbreaking stuff that Extension here at UCI has done. I mean, we bring in significant profit every year through our extension offerings. Much of that funnels right back to the university to support undergraduate and graduate student-based activities. And we take pride in that. We're really helping to continue to expand offerings. We will partner with some departments to help them start up programs, to help them start courses. We're funding the Distance Learning Center. So and I think California, I can't speak for UC representatives, but would see that by expanding outward, Extension in particular, we're able to get in and better support California-based students. Now that could as the economies change and as different initiatives come at the state level as well. Diversity in higher education. Does the online component of UCI have greater or less diversity than on-ground courses? We are seeing the same in undergraduate summer session courses, and we don't have a master's that was an on-ground criminology, law, and society. I don't believe we did. We might have before. I don't know the comparison there, so I apologize. I don't have the answer to that one. In Extension, that's a really good question. I am not 100% sure. From the anecdotal stories that I've heard from folks, we are seeing a greater diversity because we can attract a larger audience of folks that we might not normally attract. I think we're seeing more women online than in on-ground courses, as an example, but I don't have an exact answer to that, so I will definitely follow up. I'll ask folks internally about that, and I can follow up with that and share that, or I'll make sure Gary shares that when he presents later on in the series. Apologize.
Well, we thank you very much for your time, and your vast experience in the business is valuable. Series. I'm assuming no one else has any more questions, and we would like to thank everyone for participating this week, and look forward to seeing everyone again. Melissa, you're now part of the team, so you can come back every week and tune in.
I would love to. You had a couple of topics that I was really interested in when I looked at the series. So I posted my email again here. Oops, I actually did privately. Let me do it publicly to everyone. Well, I'll just say it. It's easy. mloble@uci.edu, and I'll post that here. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I'm honored and very thankful that you invited me to join you.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're out. Thanks, everybody.